Said I'm taking big shots, just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like a 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like a 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. They been trying to get me cheap like a thrift shop, but I told them it's my time, check the wristwatch. They been talking way before they even doing something. If they wanna pay, let's get the tip off. Ain't no silver lining, dawg, this some rose gold. Getting new money, I'm a old soul. Yeah, I get it bouncing like a pogo. And I'm too cold like Frozone. And my chick elastic, girl. Told them we ain't in the faking, this ain't plastic, girl. Bought a new whip and cash, now my taxi thorough. Way I'm shooting like step, but my pass is bro. The way I'm playing the field, I'm in a league of my own. And now they all in they fields, I got them all on my phone. But dog, I'm hitting the climb, I got no time on the low. Way I'm shooting is messy, the way I'm hitting the goals. I'm taking big shots, just stop. Way I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like a 6 spot.
Today we're talking about the DJI Osmo Nano, a camera that I'm so excited about, not only as a drone channel to test it on an FPV drone, which we'll talk about a lot in today's video, but also to use it on a daily basis as a wearable camera to capture my daily life and also some behind the scenes shots of what I'm doing when I'm recording my videos to share with you guys. Before I dive a little bit deeper with the FPV content, I want to quickly summarize everything that this camera brings. So if you're not an FPV pilot, you can still be aware what you can do with a camera like this and how you can take advantage of this super small and portable form factor. First of all, the camera has two modules. The main module, which is magnetically detachable from the other one, holds the camera itself, which is super small, compact. It's magnetic. You can attach it to any surface you want. You have a big sensor here on the front and a removable lens cover that is quite handy to have if you want to put ND filters on this camera, which is a must if you want to capture cinematic footage with it. You only have one button here to record, and that's something that I actually love. The other side has a screen. You have a USB-C port, an SD card slot, and again, just one button. I really like the simplicity that we have here. There is no turn on button, there is no switch modes button, there is just a record button. And this actually makes a big difference in a daily usage when you just want to start and stop recording. You don't have to power on the camera, you can simply press the record button. It will power on not only the module but also the camera. And the same, if you want to power it off, you just hold the record button, it will turn off the camera and it will turn on the screen on the second module as well. So this is a very simple thing, but makes a big difference, especially if the camera is not in your hands, if it's somewhere, if you wear it on your chest, if you wear it on your hat, which are two of my favorite ways to actually use this camera. In my daily life, I wear hats a lot, so I always use this hat mount, but I don't use it on top of my hat. I use it on the bottom of my hat. So let me show you real quick. I just attached the mount here to the brim of my hat and I attached it upside down. So whenever I want to mount the camera, I simply do this. And now the camera is positioned very close to my eyes. It doesn't obstruct my vision. It doesn't interfere with anything that's going on. It's not heavy, but in my opinion, this is the best way to attach this camera to get those POV shots. Anything else just doesn't have that natural POV look because it's not exactly angled the same way as your eyes. So it kind of looks a little bit different. So from here, you can easily just rotate it a little bit, push it up or down, just so you can mount it properly and you can observe everything here from the screen. So when I power it on, I can see the screen, I can tilt it whichever way I want, so I can have the best angle possible. And then I can start recording, stop recording, and then just turn off everything if I don't want to use it anymore, just from one button. That's the simplicity thing that I mentioned. And if I want to remove it, I can just use the magnetic latches, remove it from my hat, put it here to my chest mount, or put it anywhere else with the magnetic attachments, and it's good to go. This camera is super convenient to be used in a variety of different ways. And I'm really enjoying the different type of footage that you can get when you don't really have to think about it. You just put it somewhere and you forget about it, and that's probably the number one thing that I love about this camera. Next, of course, is the quality, because this is pretty much this, the Action 5 Pro, but in a smaller form factor. As you can see, it's a drastic difference, especially if we remove it from the screen, and if we compare, they are super different in terms of form factor, in terms of size and weight, but they record very identical footage. So for me, something that I've been doing was using the Action 5 Pro as my POV camera slash behind the scenes camera, because it's an action camera. You can do a lot with it and you can attach it in a variety of different ways. Now, same thing I plan to do is just incorporate this instead of the Action 5 Pro, and I can use this a lot more because of how small it is. So that's great. Something else that I'm a huge fan of is the fact that since the camera is magnetic, it uses the same mounts as before. So if you have been using the Action 5 Pro, for example, and you have an FPV drone and you have a mount here on the front, the same way that you have been attaching your Action 5 Pro, you can attach your Nano as well. So it's really easy and convenient the way you can detach this camera and just use it to its maximum potential. Now again, since I'm a drone channel, I fly a lot of FPV, and that is something that I was very curious about. How does it perform on an FPV drone? I'm happy to report that it feels exactly the same way as the Action 5 Pro in a smaller body. So the main thing you need to understand is with those cameras, you need a specific set of settings to really extract the most out of them. So the number one thing you have to do is switch to D-Lock M. 4K, it's a must to shoot in 4K, and then you have to decide with which frame rate you want. I have recently switched to 30 frames per second instead of 24 or 25. 4:3 aspect ratio if you want to stabilize your footage later in Gyroflow, which I highly encourage you to do instead of relying on the built-in stabilization, because it gives you a whole lot more flexibility and kind of ways to play with your footage to make it maybe a little bit smoother, to lock the horizon, or to make it a little bit more dynamic and action-packed by introducing a little bit of vibrations to it, not having to always make it 100% smooth. So this gives you that flexibility to really decide what you want to do with your footage with Gyroflow. So of course, if you want to do that, you need to disable the built-in stabilization, use 4:3 aspect ratio, decide on your frame rate and resolution, and also set your lens to wide. The next thing you need to do to extract the most out of this camera when flying FPV is to set your camera parameters manually. So your ISO, your shutter speed, your white balance, and your ND filter. Those are 4 things you need to configure to really extract the most out of this camera. So I always set my ISO to 100, the lowest possible, so I can have 0 noise in my footage. Then I set my shutter speed to double my frame rate, which is 1/60th of a second. White balance I always set to auto, so I can let the camera decide what the perfect white balance is. And then when I see what it is, I lock it to manual, that's a value. And finally, you need to select which ND filter you want to use. You have ND8, ND16, and ND32 with this camera. That comes with the package from DJI. So in this case, I decided on an ND32 because the sun was very strong, very bright. And of course, I needed the strongest ND filter available to lock my settings with. After that, it's just a matter of flying smoothly or not smoothly. It's really up to you how you want to fly. But then, of course, it's easier to stabilize your footage if you are kind of thinking about that while flying, so you don't do any sudden movements that are just not really natural. So when you do that, you can then take your footage and then take it to the next step with Gyroflow. Now let me show you how to actually stabilize your footage from the Osmo Nano for best results. First of all, we have the footage right here, which, like we already mentioned, is 4:3 aspect ratio. It's shot in 30 frames per second with manual settings for the white balance and the shutter speed. That is going to give us this really nice motion blur here that we are seeing next to the ground, and it just looks really, really nice and fast-paced, which we always want. So now we need to drag it into Gyroflow, and what we have here, first of all, the footage starts at about the second minute of my flight because I had some issues and I started recording way too early. But anyway, you see here those tabs, motion data and lens profile. We just need to make sure that DJI Osmo Nano is our detected camera. We see all the information about our footage, the duration and the frame rate. The lens profile is correct. So now the first thing we need to do, obviously stabilization is being applied automatically, which you can see here. The smoothness is set to 34%. We can drop it down to around 30% or 20%, really depends. And as you can see, as we go to higher percentage, the footage gets cropped a little bit more. We don't want to have 100% smoothness, of course. I set it to about 20 to 30% depending on the desired outcome of my footage. For now, I will set it to, let's say, 30, just so we can have very smooth and great looking footage. Since here we were just cruising around the rocks in the sea, we don't have any like super hard freestyle or anything like that to mess up our shots. Next, what I would advise you to do is to enable low pass filter. This will stabilize your footage a little bit better. And as you can see, when we enable it, it kind of crops in a little bit, but it's a very insignificant amount, so it doesn't really bother us. The other options, we're not going to really play with them. Those are just standard things that we have here, just the low pass filter, the smoothness percentage, which you can play with a little bit if you want, but this, I think, for the most part is enough. If you want audio, this is the setting that you need to press, but personally, I don't want to have this noise of the drone in my footage. It doesn't really bring me anything, so I just keep this off. This is the bitrate, the resolution, and the codec that we have, and we're ready to hit export. Now the footage is completely smooth and ready to be used. As you can see, it's a little bit flat, so obviously we need to color grade it and maybe add some effects here and there. But other than that, it looks perfectly fine. Everything looks good. And this camera really reminds me of the Osmo Action 5 Pro. It's really like a small version of this exact same camera. I've been using it for FPV for so long. It looks exactly the same way. It doesn't really miss anything. So really happy with the stabilization and how the footage looks like. Now let's get to the editing software so I can show you how easily you can color grade that footage to get it extra crispy and good looking. Here we have our footage in DaVinci Resolve. And of course you can use any software you want to color grade it. I'm just going to show you what I use. And I already have a version of the footage graded here, but I'll show you everything that I do from scratch. So first I have my initial node that I will duplicate a couple of times so I can have a little bit of freedom to play with the nodes and add different things to them. So first we will use our conversion LUT because the footage has been shot in D-Log M to retain maximum details and dynamic range. So now we will convert it to Rec 709. We have our LUT here in my signature LUT bundle. We have our conversion LUT D-Log M to Rec 709, and already things are looking good. Now, the next thing I will do is add my look LUT, which will kind of create a vibe to the footage that is going to be really nice. So in my LUT folder, I have my creative LUTs. We have 8 different looks, and you can use the orange and teal, which straight away creates a really nice vibe. But we have a couple of different looks that are just great looking and, you know, create different atmosphere and different tone to your footage. So what I would personally go for is called Green Magic. I like the look of this LUT. I will drop it down so it doesn't seem too overpowering. I will drop it down to about 0.8, something like this. And then we will do a few small corrections to the footage. So first, starting with the exposure, Let's go here towards a section where, for example, here we have quite a lot of things going on. We have a lot of highlights, we have a lot of shadows, midtones, and here the rocks are a little bit too dark in my opinion, so I will drag the shadows up, maybe something like this. We don't want it to be like this, obviously, so let's keep it to about 0.02. The midtones we will kind of increase a little bit to something like this, and I'll drop the highlights because yeah, we have a little bit too much of that. So these small corrections already make a big difference in my opinion. We can see a lot more details from these areas here. White balance is something else that I want to quickly change, or at least tweak a little bit. I'm going through the footage just so I can have a little bit of a better feel if something is missing, if something needs to be changed. And I think a little bit more blue in the midtones would be a good idea. So a tiny bit of blue, just a very small amount in the midtones to take away some of that warmth from the footage, I think is going to be fine. I will add a little bit of saturation, just a tiny bit, like 55, so we can have more punch in our footage. And then I will create a little S-curve here in my footage. So I will add 3 points. This is just a very traditional look, a small, very like almost non-invisible S-curve. Non-visible, I meant. But it just creates a little bit more contrast that I think makes sense for this type of footage. Now I will just quickly duplicate this node so I can have a little bit more freedom for creating a little bit of a different color in those orange rocks, because in my opinion some of them are a little bit too orange. So let's just take this and change the hue quite slightly. So we don't want it to be like this, but obviously we want to tweak it just a tiny bit. And we'll also maybe drop the saturation a little bit of this so it's not too overpowering. And something that I like to do is to have a little bit more darker sky. So select the blue and just drop the luminosity of this color just a tiny bit, and we can also desaturate it just a tiny bit. So nothing major, but as you can see, it creates a little bit of a different look. Now finally, I will add a little bit of sharpness to my footage. So I'll go here in the blur tab and just drop down to something like this, 0.48. I never go below 0.47 because it's way too strong. As you can see, it becomes crazy sharp. We don't want that. But we want to have a little bit more detail. Since we have a lot of motion blur, sometimes sharpening helps quite a lot to bring back this detail when we color grade our footage. Now everything is looking great. If we go and see what we started with and what we end up with, it's quite a drastic difference that I think looks natural, but at the same time very vibrant, punchy, and overall has that dreamy vibe to it that I'm a big fan of. So this is how you can easily color grade your footage. Of course, you can use any LUTs you want or not use any LUTs at all. It's really up to you and what results you want to achieve, what you want to do and how you want to do it. But this is my way of doing things. And as you can see, it took me like 5 minutes to color grade this shot, and everything is looking very, very nice. So what are my thoughts on this camera after flying with it and using it as a POV slash behind the scenes camera for the past couple of days? I have to say I'm quite happy with it. It definitely feels like a smaller version of the Action 5 Pro. It feels super familiar in terms of the settings, in terms of the different modes. The magnetic attachments are similar to what we have used before on action cameras like the Action 5 Pro and the Action 4. So it's nothing new in that regard, but it's just improved. The battery life is something that I'm quite happy with. Obviously, since this is a very small camera, you can't really expect it a super long runtime. But the fact that you have this and the fact that you can easily top up the battery while switching from one location to another, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised that it increased the battery from 60 to 100% in like 20 minutes in my car while I was driving from one location to another. This module got back to 100% really quickly. So as soon as you attach your camera, even if it's not 100% charged, it will start charging and take battery from this module on the bottom. So that's another thing. If you just switch locations, just put it on this charger so it can charge itself while you're traveling to the next location, and you'll be good to go. Now, you probably won't be able to fly and use it for a full day of shooting without having to, have a downtime. But if you are shooting here and there, if you're switching locations, you will be good to go. Just keep an eye on the battery, but you will be good. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on the Osmo Nano down in the comments below. Please let me know if you have any questions, anything you want to see more particular with this camera, as these are just my first impressions and first kind of tests with this camera, and I'm planning to use it a lot more and to make a few more videos about it down the line when I have a little bit more impressions from it. So far, I haven't had any like negative things that I have experienced because it's still kind of new to me. I still haven't really experienced everything that this camera has to offer, but first impressions are really, really solid, really good, and definitely something that I can recommend to anyone looking for a small, portable, lightweight camera, not only for FPV, but also for traditional behind the scenes content and POV wearable content that you can capture with the Osmo Nano. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Let me know what you think about the Osmo Nano. If you have any questions, drop them down below. This is Mike from Drone Supremacy. Never stop flying, and I'll catch you in the next one very, very soon. Ciao.